Sound okay? Can you hear?
Hey, good morning, this beautiful resurrection a good time in my Sunday school hour with my beautiful wife and my wonderful daughter. Let's go ahead and start with a word of prayer, and then we'll jump right into the rest of the time together. We love that you're here this morning. Thanks for joining us. Father, thank you for a wonderful day, Lord. Thank you for the day that you uh, had victory over death and the grave and sin. Lord, I pray that you would help us to enjoy this day, celebrate your resurrection. Lord, I pray that you would bless my wife as she teaches. Lord, I pray that the children would be encouraged and someone would come to know you, Father, today. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, thanks for being here. So let's see what my wife has for you this morning.
Don't go anywhere because we're going to do a game with Pastor this morning. We're not going to teach him to draw something. I have a little something for us this morning. But we are going to do you're going to see if you can guess what Pastor likes best. But I think let's start with a song. So Violet's going to come and help me sing. I wanted to start with God is so good. But the verses that we're going to do, we're going to sing God is so good. And then we're going to sing He died for me. And then we're going to sing He's Coming Soon. Since this is Resurrection Sunday, Easter Sunday, we're celebrating the fact that God died for us, but He did not stay dead. He lived 3 days later and still lives today, and He can live in our hearts, and He is with us this morning. And even though we can't all be together, I know that we are together in spirit, and the Holy Spirit is here today, and I'm excited about that, Violet. So we're going to sing about God is so good. He died for me, and He's coming soon. So if you're ready at home, I want you guys to sing with us, all right? You ready? You gonna help me? Let's see if I can get it. I've been practicing this one. God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. He's so good to me. He died for me. He died for me. He died for me. He's so good to me. He's coming soon. He's coming soon. He's coming soon. He's so good to me. That was good.
Yeah.
And you didn't mess up.
And I didn't mess up. Thank you, Lord. Let's do Jesus Loves Me. It's one of my favorites. Jesus Loves Us. It's a classic children's song that has so much doctrine in it. Jesus loves me. This I know, for the Bible tells me so. Do you guys know who wrote the Bible? God wrote the Bible, and He used men that He loved very much to write that Bible so that we can learn all about who God is. So let's sing Jesus Loves Me, right? Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to Him belong, they are weak, but He is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. Violet was doing the motions. Babe, you ready for a quick game?
Yeah.
Okay,
Ready.
Violet, wait. I'm going to take my ukulele off and hand it to my little assistant without messing up my hair. Thank you. All right, so this morning, if you are watching right now, I'm going to ask him a question of what his favorite, like what he would choose. Would you choose this or that? And you guys at home are going to see, you can't answer right away because you have to give them a chance at home.
You got it.
Okay, are going to guess. So we're going to start with a real easy one.
Okay.
Between two colors, your favorite, would it be blue or green?
What do you guys think?
Blue or green?
green.
Okay. Is anybody guessing online? All right, babe, you ready? What is it?
Definitely blue.
Blue.
Definitely blue.
Blue eyes. So blue, blue. All right. Would you rather live in a cave or in a tree?
What do you think?
He does eat like a caveman sometimes.
I'm gonna go. I always love the tree houses. Let's do a
Live in
tree
a
house.
tree. I think I would too. All right. Let's see if they can guess his favorite candy. Ready? Is it either Reese's peanut butter cups or Snickers?
Oh, that's a tough one. Reese's or Snickers.
What do you guys think it is?
Reese's or Snickers. I'm gonna go with Snickers.
I thought it was Reese's peanut butter cups.
Snickers.
You lie. He has a bag of Reese's peanut butter cups hiding in a drawer by his bed. He does not have any Snickers hiding in the drawer by his bed. All right. Would you rather have a hot cup of coffee or a hot cup of tea?
What do you guys think? Coffee or tea? I'm gonna go with coffee.
Coffee.
No coffee.
He likes his coffee with honey and cream. All right. Okay. Would you rather be at the beach
Okay.
or in the mountains?
Ooh, that's easy.
Yeah, that's
Beach or mountain? Beach or
That's
mountains?
easy. You guys probably already know that one.
Give me the fresh air and the mountains.
Mountains.
Give me the mountains.
All
Let's
right.
rock climb.
Okay. Favorite football team.
Ooh.
Some of the
favorite
men in the
football
church
team.
already know this, but the children might, so don't give the answer away to the kids if they don't know. Is it the 49ers? With like, who are our 49er fans? Reggie
and David.
David. I think we only have two 49ers fans in the church. And
Too
or
many.
is it the Broncos? I don't think we have any Broncos fans in the church.
Pastor Preston.
Pastor Preston's a Broncos fan.
Go Broncos.
So what's your favorite?
Broncos.
Broncos. Yeah, we knew that. The kids might not. Okay, are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning person or night owl?
Yeah. Violet knows
Morning.
it.
Definitely.
Morning.
I love
All right.
mornings.
Ooh, here's a good one.
Okay.
Do you think Pastor would rather eat a big, juicy burger or a giant salad with all the fixings?
That's a tough one.
And it depends on what you're willing to admit in front of our studio audience of nobody.
I do not like burgers.
Well, you like a good burger, but you like salad more.
I like salad.
He likes
more.
a big salad
A big,
with all the
stuff,
fixings.
salad on it. I'm not a big burger fan.
You should have seen us when we were dating and he was just ordering salads.
I know.
Okay. Superhero.
Okay.
Captain America
Uh-huh.
or Iron Man.
Ooh, Captain America, Iron Man. That's a tough
Do you know,
one.
Violet?
No, I don't. I really don't.
I'm gonna go with Go Captain America. Go Captain
Is it
America.
because he has morals?
I like it. He's like, watch the language. I like
Okay, all right. Would you rather, as going along with the superhero theme, would you rather be invisible or be able to fly?
that. Ooh,
An easy one.
Ooh, invisible would be rough as a pastor, So I'm gonna go with fly. No more traffic. All right.
Do you kind of feel invisible as a pastor
Yeah,
right now?
right now a little bit. Let's
It's
fly.
all rough.
I get a key.
All right. Good. Well, thank you.
That's it.
Yes, that's
Aw.
it. I'm going to put my cold hands on his face
Isn't
because
she the
you guys
best?
might not know this, but our auditorium is really freezing right now.
Oh, brother.
All right. So I'm doing something a little different for our lesson today. We're back in the auditorium. We're back at church, not in our home. And it's Easter, which is a special Sunday. And so I wanted to do something a little different with our lesson. Are you ready, Violet? Okay, so I am going to put on, you guys notice my stuff back here. This is why we're not going to teach Pastor to draw something. It's hard enough to teach him to draw something, let alone teach him to paint something. So I'm going to put my apron on.
You tie it in the back?
Huh? I'm going to tie it in the back. I got it. Okay, so I got my apron so I don't get my pretty Easter dress. How many of you actually got dressed for Easter this morning? Oh, Tom, how many of you are in your pajamas right now as we speak? I don't want to know because we all got ready. Okay, so I'm going to put this away over here. I have my paints, I have my paintbrushes, and if you want to turn in your Bibles to the book of John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all give an account of Jesus and his life here on earth and the different miracles that he did with his disciples that we've been talking about the last few weeks. And they also give an account of his death and resurrection. But we're going to be in John today. I have several other verses that I will share with you. So if you can turn in the book of John to kind of the end of chapter 19 and chapter 20, because today is a Resurrection Sunday. But I thought with the children, I really want you to understand why we celebrate today. And when we read the Bible, the Bible is a whole story from beginning to end, and it's all connected. And I think it's important that we start at the beginning. So I have this picture, and if you guys can remember, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? I'm going to even tie my hair back for this. Hold on. Do I look silly with my hair tied back? I don't want to get it in the paint, which I've been known to do. Actually, if you look close, I have paint splatters somewhere on my body right now, my arms, so don't look too close. I thought I washed it off. All right, so in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? And that's what this little picture is. And that's where it started. He created, Violet, do you remember who were the first people he created? Adam and Eve. And they put them in charge of the garden, and it was perfect. It was gorgeous. I am actually going to paint, let's see, so you know that I'm actually going to paint. He created trees. He made the sun to shine. So we're going to paint. I thought this picture needed the sunshine, so I'm going to paint some sunshine right here. And he created all these animals and birds of the sky, and he gave Adam and Eve a job to take care of them. And they lived in the garden. They walked with God. Do you know that God came and spent time with them in the garden every day? Did you know that, Violet? Can you imagine being able to get to walk with God? And God gave them some rules. Well, we know the story. They ate of the tree that God told them not to, and that is when sin entered the world. You see, sin left a dark mark on our life. I'm going to do this sun. This is what sin did. Ready for this? I have this beautiful painting, and what sin did was messed everything up. It kind of put a big black, I'm just going to blob right here. And it ruined God's perfect creation, right? Isn't that sad? My painting was so pretty. And now I have sin. Does anybody know what sin is? Think about it for a second. Because I want to make sure you guys know, what is sin? Violet, do you know what sin is?
Yes. It's when you don't obey God.
When you don't obey God. It could easily be said as all the bad things we do. So sin entered the world and left a dark mark on God's creation and what he created. Yes, Violet?
It kind of looks like a door.
Does it?
A door of sin.
Violet's going to give stuff away. All right? So, but the sun continued to shine and people walked the earth. Now, in the Bible, do you know what after Adam and Eve sinned, what Jesus did to clothe them with? We were talking about last week, and I taught you all how to draw something. What did I teach you guys how to draw? I taught you how to draw a lamb or a sheep.
I did.
In the Bible, in John chapter 1, there's a story of John the Baptist, who is Jesus' cousin, and he's preaching in the wilderness, and God comes and he says these words. He says, "Behold, the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sins of the world." And he calls him the Lamb of God. So why do you, I'm going to paint a little lamb on here. Why do you think they call Jesus the Lamb of God? I'm going to tell you, but if you ever want to know how to paint a sheep, I'm going to show you. You're going to paint a giant cloud. Not a giant cloud. You're just going to paint a big old cloud. See? Why are you painting a cloud on the grass? Mrs. Wilson, that's the weirdest thing. So I'm going to paint a cloud like this. I'm going to add a little gray down here for some shading, right? Does that look like a sheep? What does our sheep need? I think our sheep needs a little head. Our
Let's mix
lamb.
him with white. It's gonna be like a gray head.
And I'm going to give him some legs.
Horrible legs.
Right?
Don't forget its tail.
So, why do they call Jesus the Lamb of God? Does anybody know? Has anybody tried to guess yet? I'm going to tell you right now while we let that dry. The purpose of the lamb in the Bible was in what Jesus did. The first person to sacrifice a lamb was Jesus, and he used the lamb's skin to make coverings of clothes for Adam and Eve. And then from then on, they would sacrifice a lamb because there needed to be a blood sacrifice for their sin. So these precious little lambs that God created that he never intended to kill, now because of sin and that dark spot in his creation, the lamb needed to be sacrificed. We hear stories about it all the time. The story of Cain and Abel, Adam and Eve's children. They had to give a sacrifice, and Cain gave fruit. Abel gave his best lamb. Abraham, remember the story of Abraham and Isaac? And they would go to the altar to sacrifice a lamb. It's what they did. It's how they lived by faith, by sacrificing a lamb. And remember the story of Abraham and Isaac? And God says, today you're going to sacrifice your son Isaac. And it was we know that story. But all throughout the Bible, the Old Testament, that is what they did. They would go, when Mary and Joseph were coming to Bethlehem, they could purchase lambs to sacrifice, to cover it was an atonement for their sin. It was the sacrifice for their sin. And lambs are sacrificed as a sign of covering their sin, and something they did that showed their faith in God. They needed to do that so that they could cover their sin. They needed the blood of the lamb. So now I want you to think about what we're celebrating today. It's Resurrection Sunday. What did Jesus do? He died on the cross. He was a sacrifice. This is what he did. So the reason that they call him the Lamb of God, I'm making a mess. Sorry about that. Is because why did Jesus come? Do you know why he came? It says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. The whole reason that Jesus came and he was born, we celebrate Christmas, he was born. The whole reason Jesus came was for this purpose, right here. Let's see. He came to die on the cross and be the sacrifice for our sins. There were two others that were crucified with him that day. One of those that were crucified with him put his faith and trust in Jesus right there on the cross. He never had to do anything to prove that but the whole reason Jesus came to earth was to do this very thing. He'd been teaching and telling his disciples about that. And that was to die on the cross. Who did he die on the cross for? Me? You? Anybody that has ever sinned. And guess what? We are all sinners. And we all have this black mark. And it separates us from God. And there has to be a blood sacrifice. Do you know why we don't sacrifice lambs anymore? Why your family doesn't go out and slaughter a lamb and have their blood cover us? Why, Violet?
Because Jesus was the lamb and he sacrificed himself for everyone.
Jesus was the Lamb of God who sacrificed himself. He came upon that cross. The Bible says he took our sins upon him. And that day, Jesus died. And it was very sad. And some people they thought he was going to be gone and dead forever. There's a couple verses I want to read to you. In 1 John 2:2 it says, and he is the propitiation for our sin. Propitiation, I guess you could say like a payment for our sin. And not for ours only, but also for the sins of the whole world. And that's the whole world, past, present, and future. When he died on this cross, he took on the sins of the people that had lived before him and the sins of the people that were living after him. Do you know who lived after Jesus and is living? Us. That means he took our sins that we hadn't even been born yet. We hadn't even committed yet, and took those upon himself. The sins that I'm going to commit tomorrow and the next day and the next day, God has already paid for on the cross. That is what he did for us. You know what I tell my children? There has to be a punishment for sin. That's what this was. He took the punishment for us. I tell my children sometimes if let's just pretend. Say your sibling. Choose your favorite sibling, okay? Don't tell them who it is. And that favorite sibling went out and killed somebody. That would be horrible. That's a really bad sin. Do you know in God's eyes, all sin is the same? A lie is the same as killing somebody. All sin is sin is sin. It separates us from God. Bad attitude. Okay, so he goes out and he kills somebody. So there has to be punishment. He has to go to jail. He has to face the consequences. And what if another sibling who did not kill that person says, I will take that punishment for them? Well, they didn't do anything wrong, just like Jesus. Jesus came and lived a sinless life. He never sinned. He walked on this earth in flesh like you and like me. He had skin like us. He probably got cuts and bruises from playing because he was a kid just like you and played. Some of you guys broke your arms. I sometimes wonder if Jesus ever broke something because he was a kid and played just like us. He lived just like us. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says, for he hath made him to be sin for us. Jesus on the cross was made to be sin for us. Who knew no sin? That means Jesus never sinned. That we might be made the righteousness of God in him. So when he was on this cross, he took my sin, your sin, the sins of the whole world upon himself and paid for them. And that is why we celebrate today. This is a sad, sad story with a really happy ending. Romans 5:8 says, but God commendeth his love towards us, and that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. What do you guys think of that when you see the cross? When you picture the cross, can you picture Jesus lying there? And put maybe some shadows here. Can you picture what he did for you? Can you picture Jesus being there in agony and in pain? So we've talked about the Lamb, who's really Jesus, the Lamb of God, Jesus, and why he came. And we've talked about the cross and what he did on the cross for us. I'm going to talk about one more thing, and that is the grave. So they took Jesus and they buried him in a grave. They call it a sepulcher. They wrapped his body. If you go to 1 John, or to not 1 John, regular John 19 verse 40, it says, then took they the body of Jesus and wound it in linen clothes to be with spices, as the manner of the Jews is to bury. Just like every other living human being who dies, they would wrap them in cloths and spices, and they did the same with Jesus. Now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden was a sepulcher, wherein was never a man laid yet. So a sepulcher, a place of burial. Nobody had ever been buried here yet. There they laid Jesus, therefore, because of the Jews' preparation day, for the sepulcher was nigh at hand. So they had to get him in the grave. Passover was coming. And so it says it was in a garden. We're going to draw. I like drawing flowers, painting flowers. They took his body, they wrapped it in grave clothes. They put spices on him. Do you know one of the spices they put on him was myrrh? Myrrh was one of the spices that they brought to Jesus when he was just a baby. The wise men brought it to him. And there came this garden. And we know the story. They laid Jesus in the garden, and then they did something else. Violet, do you remember what? So you can read in other accounts that a lot of people were scared that something was going to happen with Jesus' body. Maybe somebody was going to steal his body or something. They knew something was going to happen. So what they did was they put a giant stone like this. And so when they put Jesus in the tomb, they brought this giant stone, and it took several men to move it so that Jesus, nobody could take it. And not only did they put this stone in front of the grave, then they also put guards out in front of the stone because they did not want those sneaky disciples to come steal his body. They didn't want something bad to happen, which tells me they knew something was special about Jesus. They buried him in the grave. They put the stone in front of it, and we know the story. That morning, if you go to chapter 20 in John, the first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre. See, these ladies had prepared some more spices to add to Jesus' body, and they were going and just doing and paying respects to the Jesus that they loved and had learned so much from him. He had changed their lives. He had changed their reason for living. They now had a purpose, and that was Jesus, the Son of God. So they came to pay his respects. They had forgotten some of the things that he had said. If you remember the story we talked about last week, and Jesus raised people from the dead, and he said to Mary, I'm going to turn back to it. When Mary, Lazarus' sister, came to him, I want to read you these verses. I didn't write them down. I'm going to see if I can. John 11:25. This is what he said to Mary before he raised Lazarus from the dead, and Mary was sad. And he kind of gave a foretelling of what he was. And some of these ladies had forgotten about what Jesus says. It said, 11:25, one more page. Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life, and he that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. He is the resurrection and the life. He had actually been telling his disciples and people that about this and that he wasn't going to stay dead, but they were so distraught from the events at hand that they just couldn't see what was about to happen. So the ladies came, and let me tell you, I'm going to read it from the Bible because it's exciting. These are God's words. The first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Then she runneth, and cometh to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and said unto them, They have taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. So they came to the stone was moved. Other chapters of the Bible say there was an angel up there, and he's like, why are you seeking the living among the dead? He is not here. And then they did something right away. When they found out that Jesus, the Lamb of God, who they had seen die on the cross, was no longer in the tomb, they went and told people. Right away. They told Peter, they told other disciples, and then Peter, it says Peter and his brother Andrew raced. Some of the disciples raced to the tomb. That's sibling rivalry to see who could get there first. And when they saw that the tomb was empty, like the lady said, they went and told other people. And that is what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to see, the children asked me today, can you go to the grave where Jesus was buried? And I said, yes, you can. We've been there in Jerusalem, and you can walk in there, and you can see he is not there. And the reason that we are celebrating today is because he conquered death. He became sin for us. He's the living sacrifice, sacrificed himself, and he conquered death for you and for me. The Lamb of God. And it is important for us to know that this exciting news should be shared with anybody we can tell. Violet, we should share it. I think that we should share it and let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine till Jesus comes. I'm going to let it shine, right? And we're going to let it shine like the sun. People see the sun shining, we're going to let it shine. We want the sun, S-O-N, of God to shine through us. Boys and girls, I hope today that you know why we celebrate the Lamb of God who sacrificed on the cross and took our sins upon himself and was buried and did not stay dead. He rose again and he lives. Today we're going to sing a song, Because He Lives, I Can Face Tomorrow. He lives. And we need to live to share others and tell them the wonderful God that we are celebrating today. And that is why we celebrate the resurrection and we celebrate Easter. That's pretty exciting. Hey, I'm glad you guys came to have Sunday school with us. Violet, let's come wave at everybody. We miss you. We're going to clean up our mess. And you guys have a good Sunday. We'll see you in a few minutes.